Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the special edition of Beyond the Trailer Park. Beth joins us from Pennsylvania, and we are happy to be joining today with the President of American Atheists, David Silverman. Good afternoon, David.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, our pleasure, for sure. So,
Definitely.
a lot of people probably know who you are. I would hope so, unless they've been living under a rock for the last, 8 or so years. So you are the President of American Atheists, and you are in everybody's faces as much as you can be, which is awesome. And by the way, we are a profanity-laced show, so no worries about dropping F-bombs. We don't mind about that at all.
That'll make it easier.
Exactly.
You know why people from New Jersey swear so much? Because
Why
fuck
is that?
you.
Yes, because fuck you.
Sounds like me. Maybe
Yeah,
I
well,
should-
Beth is from the Buffalo area originally, so she's...
Ah.
Yeah, that's why I said it's chicken wings, not buffalo wings. We don't call them buffalo wings in Buffalo.
Yeah. It's just that way for everybody else. So, David, you are from New Jersey, as you said. So before we get into all the cool stuff that you do, how the hell did you end up where you are? Were you raised religious, or what? Like, how did that work?
No, actually, I was raised in Marblehead, Massachusetts, which is... my wife says I can't say that I'm from Boston anymore because I've lived in New Jersey for 20 years. But I was raised in Marblehead, and I was raised Jewish. And I've been an atheist since I was 6 years old, essentially. And it never stuck. And I was an outed atheist right away. I never went closeted. And my mother made me go back to Hebrew school. She kept me going. I had to go. I had to get bar mitzvahed. I had to go through this whole Jewish education. Then I went to college. And I went to college at Brandeis, where I started hanging out with Orthodox Jews because they were friends. And so I would sit with them, and we would have religious discussions. And I started realizing then that the people I was debating, these were people who studied the Torah, well, religiously, right? These were people who literally studied Torah religiously. They literally lived and breathed this stuff. And I was beating them in debates consistently, easily, and it wasn't hard. And it made me understand the level of brainwashing that I was looking at. The level of, I mean, these were intelligent people. They weren't stupid people. Exactly. They weren't brain damaged. They weren't stupid, but they were saying stupid things. They were saying completely moronic things, obviously. Moronic things, obviously stupid things. Smart people saying obviously stupid things and standing by them and pounding their hands on the table and of course there's a man in the sky, and it's my man in the sky, and it's not their man in the sky. Their man in the sky is just a myth. It's my man in the sky is true because I know it, because that's what it says in the book that I have that's been raised, and this is mine, and these are smart people. And I began to get an appreciation of the disconnect, what I now know of as cognitive dissonance.
That's right.
Between the brain and the emotion, between the intellect and the emotion. And I really began to get an appreciation for it back then. And I ended up marrying one of them, by the way. We've been married for 25 years now. And what happened was I went to, my life went on. I got married. I moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for a while. Then I moved to New Jersey for my job to become a professional inventor at Bell Labs. And I didn't really, I was always an atheist, and I was always angry about the role religion played in my life, whether I wanted it to or not, via the political system. There was a group back then, a Christian group, a cult, called the Promise Keepers. Have you ever heard of the Promise Keepers?
Oh, yes, I have.
So the Promise Keepers were a Christian cult, and they were huge, massive Christian cult. And their concept was that the man should go to the woman of the house and apologize to her for making her be equal in the house. That's against God's will.
Oh,
And
yes.
he did a sin. He, the man, committed a sin by forcing equality onto his wife.
Ugh.
And he was going to go back to his wife and apologize for making her an equal against God's will, take control of the household for her, and start living a life as the dominant ruler of the household
Oh, of
because
course.
God says so. Funny how this was a very, very male-centric cult. Imagine that.
Funny
So
that.
they had a huge march in Washington, D.C., and it was called the Million Man March. No, it was not the
I
Million Man March.
remember.
I think it was the Million Man March.
Yeah, I think it was. I remember hearing about that.
It might have been the Million Man March. It might have been the Promise Keepers. Well, I might be confused with the Nation of Islam.
No,
There was a
Million
big
Man.
march. I don't remember.
Million Man was the Christians. Yeah.
Million Man was the Christians.
Yes.
Okay, so they had this huge march in Washington, D.C., and I had this new thing. I had a computer in my home at the time, which was really cool because I could have a computer at my home. And my computer had this thing attached to it which allowed me to connect to this thing called the Internet.
Internet,
yes. So I used the Internet to find an organization called American Atheists, who was actually, I'd heard of them before, but I'd never contacted them. And fortunately, they had what's called a web page. And so I found them, and I found out that they were doing a counter-protest to the Million Man March, and I went. And this was my first atheist experience. And what happened was I went to the march. We were in our protest line, and I took a moment to go to the march, and then when I went to the march, I got really mad. I listened to some of their rhetoric, and I really got mad about it. I really didn't like it. So I came back to the picket line, all fired up, and CNN was at the picket line.
Oh, sweet.
And they put their camera on me, and the camera guy went like this, and I started shouting, and what came out of my mouth didn't go on the air, and I don't remember what I said, but I do remember it was really good. I remember, I maybe if they ever find the recording of this, I'll find out that I was just like stupid gibberish, but what I thought I said was just fantastic. It was just like music, like opera emanating from my mouth. It was really good to my memory.
Magnum opus oratory, right?
Exactly. And so Ellen Johnson, the then president of American Atheists, was there, as was Neil Carey, current chairman of the board of American Atheists. Back then, he was in charge of state directors. And Neil and I started talking, and I started volunteering for American Atheists. Then I became state director. Then years later, I became national spokesperson. Then years later still, I became vice president. So while I have an MBA, and you have your MBA, you leave your curriculum bent on scaling the ladder at your corporate house. At least that's the way it was back then. And I was doing that at Bell Labs, but I hadn't been doing it at American Atheists. I had no intention of scaling the ladder at American Atheists.
It was probably more of a hobby for you at that point.
That's what I did for meaning. It's what I did for purpose. It had nothing to do with, I didn't want to scale the ladder at American Atheists, but the ladder kept pulling me up. And so the ladder kept pulling me up at American Atheists, and so finally it was 2008 or 2010 when the current president, Ed Buckner, decided to retire, and he suggested that I run for the office, and I did, and they made me president in 2010, and here I am.
Smart move on their part, I'd say.
Stand in the gap. That was the Promise Keepers March. Stand in the gap.
Yes.
No, it wasn't Million Man March. I was.
Yep. Beth did some researching there while we were talking.
Thanks,
well, she's very good at that.
Million Man didn't sound right. It sounded right, but it didn't sound right. And I knew James Dobson was involved in the one you went to, so I was like, that's not doesn't sound right, so yeah. But yeah,
Beth is a consummate researcher. The stuff that woman finds on the internet baffles me sometimes.
Yes, the internet is very useful. Internet
yes, it is. Good. I love the fact that the first time you go to a march, you get a camera in your face. Like it's like Kismet.
Yes. It was the first time there, and it was my first ever experience like that. Shouting for a camera. But I really wish I knew what I said, because I remember being so happy.
Yeah.
I remember being so happy, like blah 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 blah.
And you're like, yes.
Yeah, I was, and I don't remember what it was.
Somebody out there, anybody who works for CNN, somebody out there, like, dig through the archives and find that footage, because that would be primo stuff.
I would love to get that.
Somebody would pay good money for that, I bet. Maybe O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Look at this dumbass from 30 years ago, or 10 years ago, or whatever.
20 years. Yeah, it's 2016. This is when Beth, when was the Stand in the Gap March?
1990-ish, 6. I think.
Yeah, 6. So it's 20 years.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm remembering the apartment I was in when I saw that. So yeah, that's about right. Damn, 20 years.
20 years.
Shit, time flies when you're having fun, right?
Time flies when you're making changes.
That too. Well, you definitely do that. So you've got the new book out, which is, of course, Fighting God. And it's a great read. I've been yapping about it on my Facebook feed in case anybody's not noticed. I've been quoting you for a few days on there, so no problem. My favorite one was the quote, well, it's not like I started off by saying, well, yesterday when I was skull fucking your savior. That was.
I'm not trying to be offensive, right?
No. What's that, Beth?
I forgot exactly what I was going to say, but it's like what you're saying, not trying to be offensive. It's kind of hard not to when the book itself is so offensive. It just sets itself up.
The thing that gets me, and this is, and I think you understand that too, is theists can't separate themselves from the dogma.
Right.
They see themselves as the dogma, and that's why, the minute you say, well, there's no God, they're like, oh, you've offended me. It's ridiculous shit. But what you've got in there is some really great stuff, and I love how you call it an atheist manifesto, because it really is kind of a guidebook of how to get shit done. And I really like that about it.
It's important to understand when you're talking to people who think of themselves as personifications of their religion. When you say when you're talking to people who get insulted because you insult your religion, you have to just take it a little bit deeper than that. Why is that? Well, that's a defense mechanism that religion gives them. Religion is all about religion. Religion wants to feed itself. It wants to protect itself.
Yes.
So when you're talking with somebody who sees themselves as their religion, or the religion as themselves, that's a defense mechanism that religion teaches them. That when they insult religion, they insult you. When you insult my God, you insult me. You insult my family. What does that do? Well, that protects the God from criticism.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes,
that's a great big defense mechanism for the religion. And so when you're talking to somebody like that, you need to understand that you're talking to a victim of some serious brainwashing. You're talking to a victim just as much as, can you imagine, when you insult my psychic, you insult me. You insult my family. When you insult my used car dealer, you insult my grandmother, my great-grandmother. When you insult the guy who talks to my dead friends, you insult everything I believe to be true. So these are victims of a brainwashing. They're victims of a scam, and it's deep, and it's hard, and it doesn't make them stupid. It makes them victims. It's a very clear description of why religion victimizes its believers. When people say, oh, what religion doesn't do any harm, it does nothing but harm. It does nothing but harm. It does no good at all.
I even argue with other atheists who are, well, we shouldn't be so mean, and, we shouldn't, put down religion on people. I'm like, because it does good in the world, and we should just let people be. And I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah.
And something I've said before is because it makes people feel better. It's a comfort in hard times. And I say, for every person that religion makes feel better, it's killing someone else.
And also, it's not making them feel better. It's just telling them that it is. Okay.
Yeah.
It's telling them that it is. It's making them feel better because that's the only way they know how to make themselves feel better, because that's what religion has inflicted on them. When you're hurting, come to us. When you need help, come to us. When you're alone, come to us. What do atheists say? When you're hurting, find your friends. When you're alone, get to your family, help people. So we all have the same stuff that we have to make ourselves feel better, but religion inserts itself and makes it the most valuable thing. So we're not talking about something that people need. We're talking about something that people think they need. We're not talking about something that makes them feel better. We're talking about something that makes them feel worse, then better. And only as a substitute for real issues, for real things. You can get much more comfort from reality than you can from fiction. If you know how to do it. Yeah, if you're not relying on fiction to do it, you can get much more comfort. And so when you say that that some atheists say, oh, well, we shouldn't be so mean, I do not see anything that I do as mean. I want to make that real clear. I do not have a mean bone in my body. I am not a mean person. I'm a good person. I want to be a nice person. I strive to be the nicest person that I am. And that means when I find somebody who needs help, I care enough to try to help them. If I find somebody on the ground with a broken leg, I'm going to try to find a stick and brace their leg and help them walk. If I see somebody who is a victim of the biggest scam in the universe, I am not being a good person. I want to say this really clearly. I am not being a good person if I live and let live. I am not being a caring person if I live and let live. As I say, okay, I have my truth, you have your truth, let's all kumbaya. That is me being a cowardly person. That is me being a selfish person. That is me being a lazy person. That is me being an uncaring person. That is not me doing good. That is not me doing right. That is me helping religion and not even lifting a goddamn finger to help the injured. That's not nice. That's not good. That's not caring. And it certainly is not the opposite. It's certainly not mean. When I sit down people and tell them that they're the victims of a scam, when I take it on the chin, when I get grief, when I do something knowing I'm going to get grief because I know I'm talking to a victim of brainwashing, I know they're going to push back, I know it's going to be a painful thing, and still I do it not to be mean, but to be good.
Absolutely. And what I loved in the book, how you characterized being a firebrand as and I love that term, by the way. I've always been one. You gave me the term for it, so thank you. I didn't know what to say. But by being a firebrand and being the one to step up and say, you're a victim, this is wrong, this is false, that it's a humanist thing to do. I love that. It is.
And this is why I always call myself an atheist. I never call myself a humanist, because it's the humanistic thing to do, right? I mean, think about it. Okay, take a step back. Okay.
Yeah.
George W. Bush. I saw that you mentioned this you saw this in my talk. Okay.
Yes.
George W. Bush signs an executive order as president because somebody says to him, "My God wants you to stop stem cell research," and he says, okay. And that hurt every single person on the planet.
It did.
That stupid-ass decision, that horrible decision made because somebody thought their invisible man in the sky didn't like it, hurt every living being on the planet. At that time, atheists ranked about 2% in the population. But in fighting God, I crunch numbers. And in fighting God, I can defend the admittedly aggressive number of 27%. But I can defend 27%. And current numbers are 2.5%, which means 90% of this country's atheists don't call themselves atheists. They call themselves something else.
I thought that was really profound.
So now, how does George W. Bush look if we have 27% atheist? How does the Republican Party look? How does the separation of church and state look if we're 27% atheist? We have to understand that we have a responsibility to come out, not just to us, but to the entire planet. We have the responsibility. We have the ethical obligation to come out of the closet. And that is why when atheists who don't call themselves atheists complain to me, you shouldn't tell me what I should call myself. I can tell myself what I want to call myself. Yeah, you can call yourself what you want to call yourself. And I can call you on your shit when you are cowering behind euphemisms so that you can feel good at the expense of the world, at the expense of everybody else. You're not being clever when you call yourself a humanist. You're not being smart when you call yourself an anti-theistic agnostical skeptic. You're not being clever. You're being cowardly. Now, some people have to be cowardly. Some people have to be closeted. Others do not. And to those of us who don't, we have the moral obligation to come out, not as unbelievers or skeptics or free thinkers or humanists, but as atheists, the word that everybody knows. By the way, 90% of the country doesn't know what a humanist or a free thinker is. 90% of the country does know what an atheist is. So we need to use the word that communicates. We need to use the word that takes away that barrier, that builds us up so that those people who can't come out can come out later, so that sooner or later we can get to the 27%, take the political storm that we deserve, take the political clout that we deserve, and never let an idiot like George W. Bush hurt all living people again because a man in the sky said so. We have an obligation as atheists to call ourselves atheists. We have an obligation as humanists to call ourselves atheists. And we have an obligation as Americans to call out atheists when they don't call themselves atheists.
Absolutely. Well, and when you say, as affecting the world, you think of it in this term, Saudi Arabia has now determined that all atheists are terrorists.
Yeah.
So if you put that into your term of 27%, what impact would that have if Saudi was forced to realize that they are now calling 27% of North Americans terrorists?
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Just think about what that would do. I mean, if we're their biggest market, and they're calling a quarter of us atheists, calling a quarter of us terrorists, isn't that going to really incent us to find somebody else? So maybe they might be incented to not call us terrorists. Maybe the atheists in Saudi Arabia might actually benefit from us telling the fricking truth and calling ourselves atheists. Telling the truth. That's the cornerstone of firebrand atheism. Telling the truth, which means communicating fully correct information, telling the truth. I'm an agnostic, skeptical, rationalistic non-theist. That doesn't answer the question. Nobody knows what that means. You're not being clever. You're not being more precise. You're not being anything except cloudy and cowardly.
You're obfuscating.
And it is, and it's very discouraging because I mean I had I'm trying to remember this conversation that I had with this one atheist who called himself a humanist, and he said, I wouldn't call myself an atheist because I'm not trying to tell you what I don't believe. I'm trying to tell you what I do believe. What bullshit! What bullshit! He's trying to be high and mighty by saying, I'm not going to go into the fight. I'm going to criticize the fight from the sidelines and pretend. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Bullshit. You're not being nice. You're not being strong. You're being cowardly. You're being selfish. You're being self-centered. You're not being admirable. You're doing nothing of which to be proud. You're hiding. And this particular person was in a strong position. He was completely capable of calling himself an atheist. But no, I'm a skeptical, rationalistic humanist because I like to tell you what I am and avoid the question of what you really are asking, which is what I think of God. So I'm going to use terms that are misunderstood 90% of the time so you can't figure it out. And then I'm going to pop up my chest and pretend I'm doing good.
Well,
No,
and it was
that's crap. That's how we hold stagnant in this country. That's how we hold ourselves back. That's how we hold each other back.
It was great when I was down in Nashville. I was in Savannah, Georgia, and Nashville that weekend. I was walking around with a shirt that had a picture of the devil on it and said, "God's busy. Can I help you?"
Yeah.
And the reactions were awesome. And then, of course, you saw I had my glory hole shirt on, and that got a few looks. But people are like, "Well, is there like a anime convention in town?" I'm like, "No, atheists."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
she eats that up.
Of course, I could follow that up with, well, but that's okay. I'm Canadian, you know. But you know, I love it. I love it. I was sitting in the Savannah airport reading your book, and the guy next to me was reading some Marco Rubio bullshit, and I was like, "Hey, look, no God." It was awesome. And the other guy across from me had like a Buddhist mala on. I was like, "Wow, I'm surrounded."
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because
go ahead.
I'll use the term atheist, and everybody understands what I am, for lack of better. But if I say that I'm also anti-religionist and anti-theist, they just look at me like, "What?"
Right.
They have no, and so in a way, I mean, I'll say bare minimum of high school education here. It's not as bad as some places like in Tennessee and Alabama where the education level is lower, but even people in this area do not understand anything beyond being an atheist. Right. They understand, it's like you said, they understand that word. I mean, I'm an atheist, but I am also, and I use those terms only when people understand where I'm coming from, because half the time I have to sit there and explain, and it's like, did I just waste 20 minutes?
And saying that you're an atheist and other thing is fine. I have no problems with people calling themselves atheists and humanists. I'm an atheist and a skeptic. I'm an atheist and a this. I'm an atheist and a that. The problem is that, again, it's a 90% rule. 90% of the country understands what an atheist is, and 90% do not understand what a humanist or a freethinker is. And this is
don't use the word freethinker around here.
You use the word freethinker, and people will... You know, very religious people call themselves freethinkers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like the term is, I don't know, actually completely meaningless because people make up their own words around it. So it's almost like when you call yourself a freethinker, you're calling yourself, because people will just imbue their own terms to it. Gee, maybe you should actually use the word that people understand.
Well, and the point that you made
by saying that you're a freethinker or you're a humanist, freethinker has no meaning. But if you want to say you're a humanist, an atheist, and a humanist, I have no problem with that. I am that way too. But just understand that one of those words is understood and one of those words is not.
Well, and what you said in the book that I thought was really important is that when people don't understand the term, they go to the default, which is, you're some brand of theist that I don't understand. Okay.
Right. That's why a whole bunch of people out there think agnostic means you think there's a 50-50 chance that there's a God.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And I don't know any agnostics that think there's a 50-50 chance. A lot of people out there think that a humanist, well, a lot of people think a freethinker is religious. A lot of people think secular is religious because there's a lot of confusion between a secular person and a secularist. Nobody thinks about those terms, but I remember Openly Secular had Openly Secular Day when people were tweeting about being secular, and we got tweets like, I'm a Christian and I'm secular.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what the words mean. 70% of the country doesn't know what secular means. 70% does not know what secular means. They think probably that it's about the separation of church and state, i.e. secularist. And you can be a very religious Christian and be a secularist.
Absolutely.
So what the hell are you saying when you say you're a secular and you've got a 70% chance of being what? Confused for what? Being a Christian who supports the separation of church and state. Oh, look, you're hiding behind a euphemism and not communicating clearly. And there's another thing I want to address, and that is the acceptability of those terms. I want to talk a little bit about the acceptability of those terms because a lot of people say, well, I use humanist because it's much more socially acceptable than atheist. Now, in Fighting God, as you read, I map those two things together.
Yes,
The
you did.
acceptability of the term and the knowledge that the term is atheistic. And guess what? It's correlated. The more a term is known to be atheistic, the less socially acceptable it is. The
That's
less
right.
it's known, the more socially acceptable it is. So it's
Yeah.
not the term itself that are more socially acceptable, it's the atheism that's not socially acceptable. And how do you fix that? You fix it
Normalize.
you fix it by normalizing it, right? That's what you
Absolutely.
do. So we yield to this fake bullshit of, oh, I'm trying to be use words that are socially acceptable, and we pretend in our minds that the people hearing it know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's more socially acceptable because they don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
it's socially acceptable.
And it's socially acceptable because you're kowtowing to the status quo. You're not affecting change,
That's right.
right? Because let's be honest, change is rarely ever socially acceptable, no matter how minute the change is. And by standing up and saying, look, I'm one of these atheist people, and I'm no worse than the next guy. I'm just the same as you. So, stop treating me like shit and, treat me like the regular person that I am. And you're right, by obfuscating what it is in order to, well, I don't want to upset people by saying I'm an atheist. I'm just going to be, I'm going to use 6 different terms that they'll scratch their head and go, okay, but you're a nice person. What the hell
Right.
does that do?
And at least you're not an atheist.
I went
Yeah,
through that.
Yeah, go ahead,
I went
Beth.
through that when, I'm pretty out as far as being a lesbian, and I always have been. I've never, if someone asks me, I tell them. I don't hide it. It's, I just am who I am. And when I was at work, after about 3 years, one of the girls I worked with actually came up to me and apologized, and I was like, for what? And basically, what it boiled down to was she realized that there's no difference between her and I. The only difference being is who I fuck in bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And it took working with me for 3 years to realize there's no difference. And it's, I think in some ways it correlates to with being atheist. I have friends that are very religious. I have friends that are really into the woo. But at the core, we're the same.
Right. And it's not accidental.
It took them a while to realize it. I haven't changed their views, and I don't actually try to. I'm not in their face about it because they're not in my face about their views. But there are some people that I am because they try to shove it down my throat. I went through it Thanksgiving. I've told it before after having my stroke. You have a lot to be thankful for. No, I don't. Especially after this last round. But it's like Deb said, normalizing.
Yeah, and that's certainly a model from which we've taken our cues. The gay rights model, the women's lib model, the civil rights model. It's all about de-demonizing and normalizing. And that's what we're doing. And moving the Overton window, bringing the discourse into the realm of politically acceptable discourse. And that's I'm doing a lot of things for American Atheists, and American Atheists is doing a lot of things for this movement, but we're really just copying other movements, right? We're really just learning what works. We are taking our place. We are being genuine and we are being honest and open, but we are also cognizant of the fact that we're a movement, we're a broad movement, and we're only the latest civil rights movement.
Yes.
And guess what? Those other civil rights movements, they all won.
Yep.
Well, at least they're doing very, very well. And
I think you hit a good term by your demonizing. Demonizing. Because that's what, if you look at the Reich and what they're doing, that is what they are doing to the LGBT community, to the atheist community. Here nor there with racism, you can go either way, but each step that they've progressed on has been because they've been able to take that demonization away. We are just normal people. The only difference between me and Joe Blow down the street is I don't believe in God. I'll go a step further with myself. I will say I can show there is no God.
Right.
Yeah.
That's beyond the point here. I think with the de-demonizing, as you put it, is a good way of stating that.
And we have to remember that the reason that we're demonized in the first place is because religion wants us to be demonized.
Yes.
We, in a very real way, we are the victims of religion because we are demonized. And so we have to keep in mind that religion is a constant force against us. That when we're going up against somebody, when we're going up against bigotry, we're going up against bigotry that is being fueled on the other side by religion, and it's not doing it for anything other than money and power, which is of course the biggest driving force there is. So you've got something with money and power driving a hatred against atheists, and all we can do to fix it is put on a smiling face and use words that communicate effectively what we want, and understand that we're dealing with victims, not idiots, not morons. We're dealing with victims. My mother was a believer. She wasn't a moron. My grandmother was a victim. She was a believer. She was not a moron. They were victims of lies that had been taught to them by their parents, and that was pushed on us. And but for the grace of dumb luck go we. Right? If you and I, if we had all been raised in Pakistan by extreme Islamic families or extreme Muslim families, we would be Muslims. So it's something that we really need to keep in mind, that we are fighting against a big tide with a lot of fuel behind it and a lot of passion behind it, and the only thing that we have on our side is truth. And honesty and integrity and compassion and all of that soft stuff. They have money and they have power, and that's hard. And we have truth, and we have facts, and we have communication, and we have compassion, and they don't. And that's what we're winning with. That is how we're going to win, with truth, because truth beats money and power. And like I said in Fighting God, when it comes to religion, atheists have a monopoly on truth. We have a monopoly. We're the only ones that actually tell the truth. Okay?
Exactly.
And we need to own that. And we need to be proud of that. And we need to bear in mind that we are going against a very evil force. And if there's anything that can be called evil, it is something that spreads lies, hatred, and bigotry for money and personal gain. That's evil. And it's been doing that for thousands of years. And we are just now getting to the point where we can kill it and kill it dead. We can. And
we're going to take a big step to that in June, aren't we?
Oh yeah, I am so excited for June. So what we're talking about, of course, is the 2016 Reason Rally. The 2012 Reason Rally. I don't know if you can see this. I still have the banner. Can you see that Reason Rally banner up there?
Oh yeah, awesome.
It said Reason a long time ago, or still does, and I am very proud to have been the creator and the executive producer and the president of the 2012 Reason Rally, where we had 30,000 atheists in one place in the rain.
In the pouring rain, yes.
In the rain, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. And we're doing it again in 2016, June 4th, 2016, in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Last time we had special guests Eddie Izzard and Tim Minchin and Adam Savage. This year, we've got Johnny Depp. We've got Amber Heard. We've got Bill Nye the Science Guy. We've got Margaret Cho. We've got more people that we're going to be announcing, I think, this week that I don't think I have the authority to announce yet, but they're being announced this week. And it's going to be a huge event, huger than the last one. So once again, this will be the largest atheist event ever in world history.
I'm going to be there.
The largest atheist event ever, period. And it's going to be fantastic. I cannot tell you who we have for a band.
That's okay.
I cannot tell you who we have for music yet, but I am chair of programming. And as chair of programming, I know all the stuff. And, I know who's coming.
He's teasing us, people. He's teasing us.
I am urging you to get to the Reason Rally. Every year, American Atheists has a national convention. This year, there is no American Atheist National Convention. All eyes to the Reason Rally. We know people have fun, have yearly budgets for this kind of stuff. Spend it all here. June 4th, Washington, D.C. There's going to be lobbying days before it. There's going to be a fundraising dinner the Friday night before it. There's going to be comedy. There's going to be a comedy show before it. There's going to be 2 after parties. There's going to be a convention on the Sunday following it. So it's an entire weekend event, all supporting the Reason Rally Coalition, which is a movement-wide supporter. So this is supporting the entire movement on a real level. This is supporting the entire movement. We're not talking about one organization, and we are talking about, seriously, it's going to be the time of your life. I mean, it's going to be in early June, so it'll be a beautiful, warmer day. Hopefully it won't rain, but even if it does rain, it'll be warmer. And I really wish I could tell you the band that we're just about to lock in. It's very exciting. It is a band you have heard of. It is something that I'm really excited to announce, and I can't announce it, but I will. But I'm waiting.
Okay.
I'm waiting. But I do want to convey to you that this is going to be the biggest atheist event of anyone's life, of everyone's life.
Yeah.
It was so sublime and so beautiful to be there with 30,000 atheists. But this year, because we have A-list celebrities, and we've got Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, we're talking about 50,000 people, 60,000 people in front of the Lincoln Memorial. That's going to be twice as big as the Glenn Beck rally. You need to be there. You need to be there. And we need to have everybody there. Everybody spend the money. Everybody come. The rally itself is completely free. Just come to the rally. And there's going to be a free concert by our band. It's going to be great. You're going to enjoy it a lot. Not a little, a lot. So please make your reservation. The website for the Reason Rally is reasonrally.org. And keep an eye out on the Twitter feed and the Facebook feed, and keep out an eye out on my Twitter feed. My Twitter feed is Mr. Atheist Pants, Mr. Atheist Pants. Keep an eye out.
Twitter ever.
But really, folks, you don't want to wait for this. Make your reservations. Get your hotel reservations. It's all online now. Get your stuff ready, because this is going to be an amazing, sublime experience that nobody is going to want to miss. Nobody is going to want to be the one saying, I didn't go to that. This is not the one you want to miss.
I'm the one that didn't go in 2014 because I didn't know about it, because I lived in my little Canada bubble up here. So screw that. I am there. Booked my hotel this week already. I'm dragging the sort of slightly atheist husband with me. He can do whatever he wants. I'm going to be there, and it's going to be freaking awesome. And last night you were on a show, weren't you?
I was on the Samantha Bee show last night.
Yes.
The full frontal with Samantha Bee. Man, that was a lot of fun.
That was awesome.
They poked quite a bit of fun at me, but you can't be in my line of work and not have a sense of humor, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the whole concept of every movement needs an asshole.
Yes.
I mean, that's just funny. That's just funny.
That's brilliant.
Funny. Come on, that's just funny. And I'm not a dick and I'm not an asshole, but a lot of people think that of me, and I get it, and I understand it, and I understand that the reason is because they think they've been told by religion that anybody that's against religion is bad. I get that. Yeah. And it's like you said, going against the norm. You're politically incorrect. I get that. I'm not at all unhappy about last night's show. I think it was great.
Well, the event that was highlighted, too, I think is really neat, because it was American Atheists at CPAC, which my Canadian people may not know. It's a conservative voter. Is it voters or just conservatives in...
Conservative Political Action Committee, yeah.
Yeah, so conservative voters in America. Yeah. And David and his folks showed up, and the first year you just kind of stood there and hoped nobody punched you in the nose on the way by.
And they didn't.
Exactly.
And, this is, I'm really, really proud of everything that we're doing at CPAC. I'm really, really proud of it. I am I am almost as proud of our activity at CPAC as I am of the Reason Rally itself. Because, I mean, I look at when I went in to CPAC, when we went to first CPAC the first year, we didn't have a table. So I stood in the middle of the hallway handing out flyers about atheists for the 3 days.
Yeah.
And now we're almost an accepted part of the CPAC community. There are people who are still pissed off that we're there. We're still moving
Yes.
that Overton window. They're complaining about us being there, but the people who are complaining about us being there are the bigots, and they're
Yes.
being looked at by everybody else as bigots. So we're
Which is
making the
great.
bigots look bad. We're bringing conservatism into the 21st century. And look, I want to make it clear. I'm not a conservative. I'm not there to solicit conservative members as much as I am there to solicit support for atheists in conservatism. By far, the idea here is to make atheism normal. And
Yes.
that makes it normal inside conservatism. And if atheism is normal inside conservatism, the candidates will not be so ready to throw us under the bus, to merge church and state. This is a very, very big picture move, and it's working. It's working. We're seeing it work. We're seeing the progress. We can see it happening. And I am so proud of my team and so proud of all of us going there, and standing up against some, there's a fear to go in because you think you're going to be overwhelmed. There is a small section of people who are going to give us the hard time, the stereotypical, well, I'll pray for you crap.
Yeah.
But we went in there and we schmoozed and we talked and we gave out literature, we gave out buttons, and guess what? We are normalizing atheism inside conservatism. And if we can do this, now yes, I get that this is a big picture thing, that this is a huge if, right? If we can normalize atheism in conservatism, if we can separate conservatism from Christianity,
Bingo.
we win.
Yes.
We win. We can pack our shit up and go home. That's it. That's all we have to do. It's a big if. But if we win, we can take the money and the power straight out of Christianity. We can make them just another religion like Judaism and Islam, and all of a sudden atheists will be ethically able to choose from two different parties.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
And look at, you talk about needing atheists to come forward and say, hey, look, I'm an atheist. If you're in CPAC and you're normalizing atheism among conservatives, those people who don't feel safe now, maybe soon they can feel safe to come and say, hey, I'm an atheist too, and I'm a conservative, and I'm going to vote because I'm an atheist and not because of your Christian shit.
Right.
And that's one of the points I try to suggest with the whole theocratic movement is, there's Christianity and there's people within Christianity that are theocrats, like Ted Cruz being the prime example. But not all Christians are like that. Not all Republicans, not all conservatives are these nut jobs. It's only a small group that happens to be very vocal. So if you can separate
and get it smaller.
And make it even smaller, make them look to be the fool.
Yes. And they're getting tired of it.
It's just like the log cabin Republicans. While I personally don't agree with them because I think it's moronic when their platform specifically states that they are against LGBT issues, but they have in some ways made an inroad. Rob Portman being the biggest. When his son came out and he supported his son, he took a political hit for that, because he came out and supported his son, who came out as gay the year before, and he's basically a non-person in the Republican Party because of it. But he's still a Republican who has a gay son, who has to now try to balance, policy, and the bullshit beliefs of everybody else against the policies that he's voting for. because
Right.
he knows it's going to impact his son.
Yes.
Same with Cheney.
Cheney, right.
Although, you know,
Yes.
with Mary coming out when she did, although she's been out for quite a few years, even before Dick Cheney was even vice president, you know, he's another one who's had to balance, and it has had an impact. People don't see it because too few are normalizing, and it's the same thing with atheism.
And that's why we all need to do it.
Yeah.
That's why we all need to do it. We can, and we are seeing this change happen. We have seen this change happen over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
The best analogy here is the LGBTQ movement. As they came out and as they became well known, more were able to come out and become more well known, and then people began to demonize gay people. I remember I remember watching an Odd Couple, The Odd Couple with
Jack
Tony.
Klugman.
Yeah, Jack
Randall.
Klugman and Tony Randall. Back when I was young, there was an episode where somebody thought they were a gay couple, and
Yes, I remember that.
and they were expecting a raid because they were gay, and it might happen if they think they're gay, and they might think they're you know, and they. So I mean, just think of how the society has changed, and that was a comedy. Right?
Yeah.
And that was a comedy.
Exactly.
That was light. And just think of how society has changed so dramatically, because I would wager that when people wrote that episode, they didn't know any gay people.
No, exactly.
Or the people or they didn't know they knew any gay people. Right?
Well, and the funny thing about that episode is it really wasn't that long after Stonewall.
Right.
And for those in the LGBT community, pretty much everybody knows what Stonewall is, but that is when the police raided the Stonewall bar. And it caused an outrage among the LGBT community. I know when I moved to Pennsylvania, I mean, I was pretty much all over the front page, literally. I mean, I was outed before I was even off the fucking bus from Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And now there are kids that, you know, declare their bisexuality, and they don't really care who knows.
Right.
That when it happened 16 years ago, I don't know whether I've had any impetus in that, but it's nice to see the younger generation be able to just say, hey, I'm gender fluid, hey, I'm trans, or whatever, and not have a care in the world because their peers don't give a shit.
And their peers don't give a shit because you came out, because you took the heat. That's why what you did was humanistic. When you came out as gay, you were being humanistic. You were doing something for this generation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to own that as atheists.
And
we have to own as atheists that when we come out, we're not just coming out for ourselves, we're coming out for everybody, and we're coming out for the next generation, and the next generation is more atheistic than our generation. And so we have a tremendous responsibility to come out. We have a tremendous responsibility to use clear language and to de-demonize the word and to take down the pox on society that is religion. We have the moral and ethical obligation to do it. And when we hide behind euphemisms, when we hide inside closets, when we shush people who are trying to come out of a closet, that makes me even more angry when other atheists tell me to be nicer to religion, when other atheists try to shame me for being an outed atheist. They're hurting this entire country, they're hurting this entire world, and they're doing it for the sake of being nice to the lie of religion.
And for their own comfort too.
Yeah, because they want to be. It's comfortable to do what other people want you to do.
Because they don't want to take the heat, so they're doing what they can to discourage anyone from creating.
You're showing me that I'm doing wrong. You should stop that. I want to sit quietly and tell religion that it's relevant.
Well,
because religion wants me to.
You would like on my way to and from my trip down south last month or the beginning of the month. There's a couple of times where you make chit chat with people. I'm kind of mouthy, so I'll talk to anybody, and I'm chit chatting with people. Oh, so what are you what are you going down south for? I'm going to an atheist convention, and both times the reaction was, oh, you guys have a lot of those now, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. Or, can I have another seat or get away? It wasn't any of that. Or, I didn't even get an I'll pray for you.
No.
Which was
That's called de-demonization. And the reason that you had such a positive experience is because some earlier time somebody had de-demonized atheism to that person.
Yep.
You're the benefit of
Absolutely.
somebody else's activism. You're the beneficiary of somebody else calling themselves an atheist. You're the beneficiary. You'll never know who it was, but they did good by you by telling the truth. And that's what Fighting
Absolutely.
God is all about. That's why I wrote
Absolutely.
Fighting God, to get people to tell the truth about being an atheist. It's not about converting people to atheism. It's about understanding that what an atheist is and why it's important for you to come out as an atheist, why it's important for you to get involved, why it's a moral imperative for you not to stay in the closet anymore if you can.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming up on the end here, and I know Beth, there was one little, Beth wanted to mention, and I see you've got it on the wall behind you there, your what the fuck face. Beth, that's her favorite media clip of you.
I really don't know how. I mean, I do and I don't. You go on O'Reilly at all because, I mean, my favorite clip of you is the tide goes in, tide goes out clip.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you guys haven't look it up. Just look up Silverman's name and tide goes in, tide goes out.
Yep, it's there.
But I think the look, because I actually watched that live when it happened, and I have the clip too somewhere on this mess of my computer. And I think people, like, I think it was a little afterwards you did an interview, and someone had asked you why you take that type of heat, and I think you really kind of expressed it in our talk today about why you take the heat for the next person.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I think you drove that home, and it's just like, because I'd end up punching him in the face. I don't do well in that type of situation. That's why I don't do debate.
Well, remember, it's not a debate. Remember, those shows are not debates. Okay,
Yeah.
debates are when everybody has an equal time to speak. Those shows are contests,
Exactly.
and my objective in that contest is to get out the talking points that I want to get out.
Yeah.
His objective in that contest is to trip me up and make me look like a fool because I'm going against his
Fairy tale.
his fairy tale. So that's the competition that we're talking about. So I mean, if you ever watch that clip, you'll see that I was about to nail him. I was about to pin him against the wall saying, hey, come on, you actually don't really believe when you get on your knees and you look at a piece of wood that you think it's God. And he responded by changing the subject.
Yes.
And doing the whole tide goes in, tide goes out thing. So that was 5 years ago now. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, it was a good way to see how many gymnastics they will go through in order to not admit that they're full of crap.
Your face was beautiful.
Yeah. I think for me, it gave me a little bit more appreciation for the work you do, because I remember I'm dating myself, the Madeline Muriel Hair days.
Ah.
Yes, I go back that far. I remember when prayer was taken out of school, so to speak. And I mean, I remember one weekend going in on a Friday, we had our daily prayer. The next Monday, we were no longer able to.
Yeah.
So I do remember those days. So it's ISP is wonky.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a good progression to see.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, David, so much for spending the time with us. We really appreciate it. It was a great discussion. And thank you for writing the book. It's freaking awesome. And everybody out there, go buy this book right here. Go buy it now because it's fucking awesome.
Thank you. And by the way,
tell our listeners what's the title.
Fighting God, yes.
Fighting God, an Atheist Manifesto for a Religious World is available on Amazon and at any fine bookstore. Also, by the way, need to make this very, very clear. There has been a time in our lives when people could just sit on the sidelines and not join organizations.
Yes.
That time is over. If you're not a member of American Atheists, it's time to pony up your $35. The website is atheists.org, and it used to be that we could just say, oh, well, everybody else is doing it, I don't have to do it, and that time is over. And
Yeah.
there are other people out there who say, oh, he's asking for money, he's asking for membership, I'm just not a joiner, that looks like religion. Well, that's bullshit, because that's exactly what religion wants you to do. Shut up,
Yes.
sit down, and don't toss us $35 to support our work. American Atheist has five employees. 5 employees. We have a building with no debt and no mortgage. We have no credit. We have no credit cards. We publish our financials every year. We have independent voluntary audits every year. And we can, and I show this in Fighting God, we can prove, or at least really, really support the fact that American Atheists specifically is impacting this country positively. We can quantify that shit. I can show you that with independent quantifiable results. You need to join American Atheists. I
Absolutely.
need your support. Yes, I need your money. I need your donations. And no, that doesn't make us a religion. It makes us a civil rights organization that needs and deserves your support. The website
Absolutely.
is atheists.org. And if you're not a member of American Atheists, please join up today, atheists.org. And one last thing, don't forget the Reason Rally on June 4th.
Yes.
That's also reasonrally.org. Thank you very much for having me on the show and
You're
letting me do a
very
nice long plug.
welcome. And you can tweet David at Mr. Atheist Pants, and you've got a Facebook page, David Silverman. You can find his stuff there. The Samantha Bee clip is on your page, so I recommend you go and check that. It's funny as shit.
Every movement needs an asshole.
That's right. And the cool thing, too, you know, folks, if you want to get the book, you know, you can go to Amazon and all those cool places, but at American Atheists, you can actually buy a autographed copy.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching, you can get something really cool like this. He signs Muhammad on everyone, so it's...
Well,
So
not for
for
everyone, but for you, I signed Muhammad.
Okay. Well, thank you. But he
But
does
if you
sign
buy it on American Atheists, if you buy it at American Atheists and you send us a link, I'll make sure I put Muhammad in it for you.
There you
Because
go.
it's our job as American citizens to draw Muhammad whenever we can, simply because they tell us we
And
can't.
Canadians, you Canadians out here, draw fucking Muhammad too, okay? Like,
Yeah.
come on, get
Yeah.
with the program. All right, David. Well, I'm gonna end our show with a little something a dear friend of ours wrote. It's called "The Only Creed for a Humanist," and I think you'll like that. We'll end the show with that as usual, and we'll be back on Monday.
The only creed for a what?
We call it the Humanist Creed.
What's that word?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I knew it.
I've never heard that word. I'm like 90% of the country that doesn't know what that means. Sorry. I digress.
I'm gonna tell Dave that. He'll get a kick out of it. It's like, you have to change your fucking thing, man. All right, folks. Well, thank you again, David, and we'll be back on Monday. And as usual, here is our humanist, or what the fuck word is that, creed.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.